Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Kings of Kimuras podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different, where I traveled to another location to interview a doctor friend of mine. This doctor trains Jiu Jitsu. I've known him for many years. I know him as Dr. Mark. I'll allow him to introduce himself in the video itself. But in this video, we talk a lot about peptides, alternative medicine, plasma therapies, PRP injections, many things, even hyperbaric chambers. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and make sure you give us a like and a follow on all social media applications. Thank you.
Welcome to Kings of Kimuras.
You and I know each other from Jiu Jitsu. First, let me let you introduce yourself.
So I'm Marc Demyun. I'm a Jiu Jitsu practitioner, but I'm also a physician, and that's how we kind of met through Jiu Jitsu. I don't know how many, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. How long have you been training for?
I've been training for almost 9 years.
Okay.
I'm still a purple belt.
Yeah.
I've been a purple belt for probably 4 of those 9 years.
And so obviously you're wearing a lab coat here. You're a doctor. How difficult is it for you to find the time to be able to train, like with your busy schedule?
Actually, that's a good question. So people think that you're always busy, so you're always working, and that's true. But the thing for me is the Jiu-Jitsu offers me that break that I don't have. I mean, if I didn't have that, it would actually be more monotonous and chaos than it would be if I didn't have that. Mm-hmm. When I train, you're still thinking, which is I like to do obviously as a physician, but you're also very, very physical. So you're getting both sides, and it's just that mental break that I get. And without that, I've noticed that I have a lot more stress. I actually gain weight. I don't feel good. And so now it's just part of my routine that I have to do it. And in fact, I haven't rolled in probably 3-4 days, and I feel it. Like it's not optimal.
Yeah, I know for me, when my wife and I travel, we go on vacation, that she almost like makes it mandatory that I go train because it's more tolerable to be around me, because like you're saying, you have that kind of like pent up frustration, or you just need to get that physical exertion out. So a lot of times before we even travel, I like plan out what days I'm going to train and like where I'm going to be at. So
and it's more than just exercising, right? Like I can go weightlift, but it's not the same thing to me. I don't know why. It's just different.
Yeah, I think it's the difficulty of it too. That it's it's not necessarily life or death, but if we looked at it like anytime that somebody's tapping you, like essentially they're putting you under, like if you don't tap from that, right? So it's that like physical exhaustion of doing something difficult and challenge yourself at the same time. And what did you do anything physical like that before you started jiu-jitsu?
I mean, years and years ago. I mean, I'm 56 now, but I mean, I played a little bit of college football, but then I blew my knee out. I only played for less than a year, actually. Did a little bit of wrestling in high school, just average stuff most kids do. And then after that, just lifted and never really got into anything until I started jiu-jitsu about, like I said, 8-9 years ago.
And so that you were in your 40s at that time?
Yeah, actually. I was, yeah, that's right. Probably 47, 48-ish.
And that's not really like a common age that people find jiu-jitsu. But like as someone who, is in their 40s, if there's somebody else like watching this, what would you tell them as an approach if they're considering training jiu-jitsu? Like, what would be the approach to it?
So when I first started, all I thought about is, I just want to get to blue belt, and then I just could relax and not do anything, and then I don't have to worry about it. But you always hear this. I don't want to make a cliche, but it's a journey. It really is a journey. And then I think after a while of realizing that, it just becomes part of your lifestyle, and has really, really transformed the way I do things as a person. Mm-hmm. It offers you things outside just the physicality of it. It offers you I've been in a lot of leadership roles, and jiu-jitsu has really helped me with being in those leadership roles. It's not that you're arrogant, but you just have another sense of, you could handle things no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like if you're on the mat and you get tapped, that's fine. But, and you feel in command, even though you may be getting tapped, but you're also doing that to other people, and you can get out of difficult situations because that's what jiu-jitsu is. Mm-hmm. When you walk into a boardroom to talk to a CEO of a hospital, it's a difficult situation, and you got yourself in for whatever reason. There's a problem with the contract or something like that. It's the same mindset. You can kind of get yourself out of that. So it's helped me a lot in business, medicine, and obviously personal too.
Yeah, I tell a lot of guys that, and I'm sure they get tired of me saying it, that jiu-jitsu will directly affect your life outside the mat. And I know for me, it's helped me. I've had leadership roles prior to like running in a gym and teaching classes, but it's allowed me to kind of be more, be a better leader. Be able to speak in front of people as well. I mean, if you're teaching like as many classes as I teach and you're not good with communication, then you're probably not going to expand and grow.
Yep.
So I'm sure it's the same thing with you of like, being in those difficult situations on the mat and like they're directly translating to on the job.
Yeah. I totally agree. So, someone in their 40s, it's absolutely worth doing. Obviously, go slow, take your time, tap early, all those things that you hear. But yeah, it really does. It will give you a leg up. I mean, it's almost like furthering your education. You're getting a skill that you wouldn't otherwise have, no matter what you're doing.
So in order to find this jiu-jitsu school, was it like you saw a social media ad, or you were just, in a strip center and you saw the place?
So I had a personal trainer, and the gym had closed that we were at. So we went to another gym in the McKinney area, and they offered jiu-jitsu and taekwondo and MMA and all that stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, maybe I could try that. Mm-hmm. And it was an experience. I thought, well, I'm strong. I've always been really strong, so I'll probably be fine. And I just got killed. I'm like, well, I don't understand how this can be. Mm-hmm. Like, this person's half my size, and I can't do anything. And I'm like, I have to understand this. So that's kind of got me hooked. And I've been doing it ever since. And it's not that you have, it's all about ups and downs in jiu-jitsu, as probably life is, but it just got me hooked. And I don't know, there are some people I think that do it and last 3 months and don't go back. And there are some people that are hooked for life. And I don't know how to determine that or who those people are, but it really, really just, I was intrigued by the fact that a smaller person could actually control somebody that's bigger.
Yeah, I gave up a long time ago trying to figure out which student was going to come in and stay for the long haul and which ones weren't, because, in my experience, a lot of times the people that it kind of comes natural, maybe they're naturally athletic, are not always the ones that like stay to black belt.
Yep.
But that's not to say that there, aren't some of those people, but normally it's the person that, is a more critical thinker that tend to last a little bit longer in jiu-jitsu. They're more analytical in the way of their approach to, business or life. Those people tend to last a little bit longer in jiu-jitsu.
That's a good thought, actually. There might be something to that, because physically I wasn't in great shape. My balance was terrible because I didn't practice that. But then I learned that. But what I liked about it was the thinking part. So yeah, maybe that's it, that you can't understand how, like I said, the smaller person can control the bigger person. There's like, it doesn't compute. Mm-hmm. So to try to figure that out, you're probably right. It's someone that wants to think that through and try to figure that part out of it.
Yeah. So in this, you said 8 years of training.
Yeah.
What kind of injuries have you had during that time period?
So my first injury was my first ever tournament, and I was a white belt. I don't even think I had a stripe, but it was down in Dallas. It wasn't even IBJJF. It was some other tournament they had, and it wasn't structured very well. And there was nobody in my bracket, obviously, because I was older. Mm-hmm. It was 220 pounds, again, 47. So I think it was fight to win, maybe. Anyway, but the person that the next person that was in my bracket was 35 and he was like 240 pounds. And I found out later, after he destroyed my knee and everybody else, that he was a linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks for like 3 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he basically, I was confident. I'm thinking, oh, I'll be okay. And everyone's like, I can't believe you're doing this. And got out, and he just threw me. Not only threw me, but basically threw me, to where I landed, twisted my knee and broke my MCL. The next guy he threw into the table was like a movie. But anyway, that was my first experience. My wife, I remember, she was in the stand, and I remember just looking at her, and her face was just white. And she's like, I can't believe this is happening. And my coach was like, he felt so bad. He's like, I'm sorry. Usually people don't get hurt, blah, blah, blah. And my coach was like, he thought to himself, that's the last time I'm seeing this guy.
Yeah.
But I got my surgery, recovered 3 months-ish, 6 months, came back and kept on going. So I haven't had major surgeries like that, but obviously a lot of shoulder injuries, some neck stuff. But is it worth it? Yeah, I wouldn't give that up for anything.
So in that time period where after you had your surgery, did you do any type of peptides or anything to help speed up that process?
So at the time, I wish I knew of that then, but no, I didn't. If I did, I absolutely would have. That has helped a lot of my minor injuries. But no, at the time I didn't do that. I have had people since then have injuries, and they have come in and gotten an evaluation and peptides, and they have felt that they felt that it speeded the recovery up a lot. Mm-hmm. So I wish I did, but at the time I didn't have that. So
that kind of leads me to my next question. The facility here is ProMed.
ProMed, yeah.
And that's a lot of what you guys do here. Obviously, that's one of like many aspects of what you guys do here. But what was the purpose of starting this business that you guys have here?
Well, it's a long story short. After my injuries, I was like, there's got to be a better way to recuperate and recover. And that's when I started to learn about the peptides and got involved with someone that had a small clinic. And he's like, hey, why don't you come and take a look at our clinic and see what you think? And I became a patient. After a while, I got really involved with that and then actually became one of the medical directors. And in the ensuing 8 years, that just kind of spiraled into different opportunities to where now we're at ProMed here, about a 10,000 square foot building. We've got 8 hyperbaric chambers. We do peptides. We do IV fluids. We do pretty much anything wellness. Just a lot of ways to maybe heal that will hopefully augment your therapy and speed you along a little bit more. But yeah, I think we offer a lot of things here that a lot of primary care places don't. And again, a lot of that's based on my experiences with being injured in Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah, it seems like that's the way that a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot because there's a lot of doctors that don't think of medicine that way, right? It's like more treating the illness and not like the root cause of the problem. And I feel like with peptides, I've had personal experience of having injuries and using things like BPC and TB500 and having like great results from that. And it's good to hear that you as a physician are like understanding that it's better to treat people with stuff like this, at peptides that are like a little bit more safe than typically treating somebody with like a medication or something, right?
I think that's true. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to make statements that it's going to cure your cancer, you're going to, gain 50 pounds of muscle and all that stuff. But I do a lot of traditional medicine. I actually teach residents in an internal medicine residency program, so I'm well versed on training physicians, and we really don't get that part of medicine. It wasn't until obviously after my injury in my 40s that I even knew that world existed. Mm-hmm. And now it's a lot of places. And my biggest thing with a lot of the peptides is make sure you're doing it safely, make sure you're doing it in conjunction with the licensed physician that actually knows what they're doing. Because there's a lot of things out there that really, may or may not be safe. And having someone that's in that realm and also knows medicine, I think will get you a lot further than just kind of guessing on your own.
Right. And there's, anybody can go online and search, and there's like thousands of websites that sell peptides. And, you always run that risk of getting something that either is not like clean or maybe not even what it actually says it is. So, obviously working with a physician and getting pharmaceutical grade is going to be your best option for that.
Best option. And hopefully a physician or a nurse practitioner will be able to figure out what your needs are. You may think, I need this or I need that based on what I read, but maybe there's another option we can give you that you haven't thought about. Mm-hmm. And in terms of either peptides or other therapies. And I think that's where ProMed comes in, and we take a look at the whole person, what your goals are, what you want to do, and kind of take all that into account, figure out a personalized plan for you as a person.
How did you get into practicing medicine? Like, was this something that you kind of like always wanted to do your whole life? I know there's, people that say, they want to be, a doctor or, a lawyer or, a fireman. Is that something that was always on your radar, or was that something that you decided to do in your life?
Honestly, I wasn't, my mom was a nurse, so I've always respected doctors. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but I was never really sure. And then I grew up in the 80s when Top Gun came out, and I thought I wanted to be a pilot. Went to school and college, and I told you I played for a little bit until my knee injury. My grades plummeted, and whether I wanted to be a pilot, a doctor, or whatever it is I wanted to be, it wasn't gonna happen unless I actually figured out what I wanted to do. I'm very, very, very good at being self-motivated and very focused. And so I decided to leave all that, kind of give up that part of my life and just focus on academics. And I was like, what job can I do that's got good longevity, that I could really help people, and I can make, decisions that will affect people's lives for the better. And so that's when I came to medicine. And that was probably my second or third year in college. Then I, did a lot of prerequisites, went to medical school. At that time, again, my thought was I want to know everything, try to help as many people as I can. So internal medicine came up, did my internal medicine residency at Mount Sinai in New York City. I'm from the East Coast, the Philadelphia area. Always spent time on the East Coast. Was in New York City, 9/11 happened, and I just wanted to get out of the city. I wanted to get out of the East Coast. I thought I was going to go teach in Boston, but since that tragedy happened, I called up a recruiter and said, get me anywhere out of the East Coast. And he said, I got a perfect place for you, Mississippi. And I was like, wow, I've never been to Mississippi. It's worth just a free ride down there. I'm sure I'll just go there just to see what it's like and fly back. Did it, and I went down there, and I loved the place, and I loved my partners. I had two pulmonologists, a cardiologist, and an internist, and they were like my family for 10 years. I learned more about medicine than ever, and that really catapulted my career. I did clinic, and then I did hospital medicine, decided I like hospital medicine better, did hospital medicine, got to be medical director of the hospitalist. The CEO in Dallas called me up and said, hey, our program is suffering. We need you to come in and help to turn the program around. Came in there. We went from, I think, 3 or 4 hospitalists at the time, actually 8 because it's 2 shifts, up to now it's 34 hospitalists. Got promoted from that to regional director. From regional director, I learned a lot of skills, went to London School of Economics and learned some leadership, learned some things about finance. And then after that, decided, I could probably do this on my own. So that's when I started a wound care company, mostly mobile, with the fact and the premise of trying to keep patients out of the hospital as a hospitalist, and being kind of involved in a hospital, it's very important that once the patients get discharged, that they don't return, that they're well enough, obviously, to go home, but hopefully they don't have a problem or an issue that has them return back to the hospital. So thought there was an opportunity, a niche there. I met my partner, Alex, and we started a mobile wound care company. And that was 2.5 years ago. And it has just blossomed into, now we have 3 sites, Fort Worth, Irving, and then here at ProMed, our main area. And still have the mobile part, but there's ProMed, and then there's Precision, and now they're kind of merging together to have that mobile arm, and then also the clinic part here. So it's been a great journey, and I tell you, I really love the wound care part.
So the mobile part of the company is for, I'm assuming, patients that it's like difficult for them to get out of the house.
Right. That's right. Yeah, they can't leave. Sometimes they can't even make it to the doctor. So they'll call us up, and we go everywhere, pretty much everywhere in the state of Texas. For sure, in the Amarillo, DFW, down to Austin and San Antonio, a little bit of Houston, but that kind of main swath of Texas is where we're mostly at. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just love doing that. We've got a couple nurse practitioners. I say a couple, we've got 6 nurse practitioners, about 7 or 8 MAs, and they kind of go out, and we don't do, I know people hear wound care, they hear grafts, and that's not what we do. We do a lot of aggressive ultrasound debridement that usually you could only get in the hospital. We made a way to make this actually mobile and go to the patient's homes with it. And our heal rate is about 11 weeks. Our return to hospital rate is less than 5%. I think it's less than 2.5% in the last 6 months. Our complication wound care, our complication and wound infection rate is it usually hovers around 6%, which is actually pretty good. I'm very, very metric driven. A lot of wound care companies aren't, but that's probably our biggest success, is looking at metrics, and our metrics are pretty good. We worked very hard to get where we're at. So, and I think our success kind of shows in where we've been the last couple of years.
Yeah, and like you said, you started that from scratch, right? And now you've expanded into this huge building. And I took a tour around earlier, a small tour, and kind of saw, some of the facility, and what you guys are doing here is really cool. I think that more, modern medicine is going to transition into things that are more longevity driven, instead of, like I was saying earlier, just treating, the base issue, so.
No, 100%. I mean, a lot of it, I think we are seeing that transition into where it was kind of chronic care management, where your diabetes kind of controls your life. Now it's more about maybe getting that managed and moving on, and maybe even getting past that diabetes part, losing the weight, getting more in shape, taking your life back, taking your control back. That's what I love about this job. And again, it's almost like Jiu Jitsu. You have to kind of fight for everything, but man, it's worth it in the end when you do succeed and you are doing what you want to do, and you're not at home just kind of waiting for something to happen. You're making that happen, and so taking that first step is important. And that's kind of the whole premise of why we became what we are.
So I want to talk about a little bit more about Jiu Jitsu. Obviously, after that first competition you had, you haven't competed again?
No, I've competed again.
Oh, that's right. You did Master Worlds,
did
right?
A couple.
Okay.
Well, I didn't do Worlds. I wanted to do Worlds, but no, I've done a couple. I was actually signed up for this most recently one, Austin Open, but for some reason they had the purple belts on Friday, which usually I travel on Friday and compete Saturday, but so unfortunately I couldn't do that. And then I missed the deadline for Dallas Open, but I was working, so I couldn't do it anyway. So yeah, the last one I did was Austin Open. So that was, I guess, 1.5 years ago.
And you were a purple belt at that time?
Of course, yeah. I think I've always been a purple belt.
How did that experience go? Hopefully a lot better than the first time you
Yeah. Actually, it did. I was actually winning, and then I had last second just a quick injury, and I couldn't finish, but I was winning the whole match. And my coach, I could see the coach. He's like, just don't do anything different. Just stay there. Just stay there. Stay there. I was winning on points, and this guy ended up actually, I think, placing second or third at Worlds that year. And I was winning, and I literally just tweaked my shoulder, and I couldn't continue.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have any desire to like continue competing? Is that something that's in the future for you?
Yeah, I want to compete only because I'm really scared to do it. That's literally the only reason. Like, I got this mental block as to, I got to get over this fear. And I've, came this far, and I just got to get over that. So yes, I definitely do want to compete again.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, because I think every person that's ever competed, even I know high-level athletes, like they're afraid, but it's like more of the fear of the unknown of like what can happen in the match. And I can't tell you like how many conversations I've had with my athletes where they're telling me like, well, if they do this, I'm going to do that, and if this happens, I'm going to do that. I'm like, honestly, when you get in there, probably none of that stuff is going to happen, and it's going to happen so fast that, what people don't realize that have never competed is when you step onto the mat and compete, when you finally like lock up with that person, all of that fear is kind of gone, right? You're very in the moment, and I think that's what I know is like always drawn me to competing, is that, there is that fear of the unknown, but I always know that once we get out there, that all of that stuff is like gone, and you're just very much in the moment,
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. But it's that, and I've done several competitions, and it's still, I haven't gotten used to that yet. But yeah, you're right. When you step on the mat, it just seems like it disappears. But it's that part of leading up to going on the mat.
Yeah.
Even just a week or two before that, you're just thinking, and then you overthink too much, and that's, you beat yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still trying to work through that. I got that book, Don't Breathe.
Oh yeah. Or Breathe, right?
Breathe is a Breathe.
From Hickson.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Yeah.
So it's supposed to be good. I haven't finished it yet, but
yeah, there's another really good book that it doesn't really relate to like directly competing, but it's the David Goggins' first book. I don't remember if it was Can't Hurt Me, or I think that's what the first one was called, but he talks a lot about, like, obviously he went through like the Navy SEAL program and failed several times in doing that, and had like a traumatic childhood, but he calls it his mental cookie jar. So anytime that he achieved something very difficult in life, whether it was something simple as like completing a race, or going through the SEAL program, he kind of stores that back for later. So when he is dealing with something difficult, and I always use that concept later on in my competing of like, hey, I've already been here, I've done all this training, I've done all this heavy lifting, I've competed several times, like tribulations in life, like this has allowed me to get to this point. So if I've made it through that, I can definitely like push myself through this. And there's a lot of great books out there like that. I think the Hickson is another great one where, he was one of the best competitors of all time. And what ended up really taking him out of his competition career was the loss of his son. And, I think that's something that, a lot of people that compete sometimes, especially professionally, they kind of like lose the aspect of like, there's life outside the mat, right? And that's what's kind of cool about your position is jiu-jitsu isn't your main life. It's like a secondary thing for you, I want to talk a little bit about the PRP, and first I'll kind of give my story about when I was able to use that. Is I was preparing for a match for Kasai, and I don't know if you know what Kasai was, but it was a huge event that they were doing, and it was going to be at the Bomb Factory. And like 3 days before the event, I hit a foot sweep on someone, and my foot continued rotating out, and it ended up tearing a tendon in my knee. And I went and talked to a couple of orthos, and they basically told me like my competition career is over with. And they were saying the only time that they really do surgery is when it's completely severed.
Right.
And mine was, not completely. I think it was like a third of the way. So he had referred me to a doctor in Austin. And, obviously there were people here that did it, but this is who he referred me to. And I'm like, oh, I'm willing to go check it out and do it. And they did the PRP directly into the tendon, and it was a complete recovery. They told me like there's a good chance that it may not work, and I even heard that from the doctor here in Dallas. And when I did that, and obviously I used like VPC and TB500, and I went back in about 6 months and had another MRI done of my knee, and you could like see where it had like grown back together. And that's my experience with it. But I know you guys offer that here as a treatment as well.
Yeah, we do. We offer a wide spectrum, PRP being one of those things. I'm a big believer in PRP. I mean, your body makes all these factors, and it's just being in medicine. I'm never get used to how amazing it is. But yeah, I mean, your body naturally makes these. So I'm not inventing anything. I'm just using what your body already does. I'm just basically concentrating it. So yeah, we do PRP. We even do, which isn't very common at all in terms of the amount of people that can do it. But we're one of the lucky people in the Texas area that I think there's 4, maybe 5 people in Texas that are offering what's called young plasma. I don't know if you've known much about that, but it's very similar to PRP, but it's taking the interleukins and all the growth factors and all that from someone that's in their 20s, someone that has all that naturally, because as you get older, you start to lose that, and takes their plasma, spins that down, and then we exchange that for your plasma, put that in you. It sounds simple, but it's actually a lot more complicated. You have to be the right blood type and all those things, and it uses a plasmapheresis. It's very sterile. It's supervised by a physician, but that actually is kind of getting like PRP for the whole body. And we've had some good results with that. Again, anecdotally, I've heard that it actually has some help with Parkinson's and actually Alzheimer's. So I think that's promising. I know the FDA has looked into that and had said that they weren't sure that it's 100% safe. There's been a lot of controversy with that, and I think it's coming back around again with the new administration and peptides and all that. Young flesh frozen plasma is actually coming back again, and I think we're going to see a lot more people using that.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed too. Obviously, with the new administration, is they're really pushing to try to get a lot of these peptides FDA approved, where it's not just some random person making this stuff themselves, right? So.
I think that's obviously a lot safer. I think they do work. I think it makes sense if they do, and we can take advantage of the technology that we've got to be able to use that to maintain and to actually hopefully help people get healthier. There's nothing like exercise.
Sure.
100%. You have got to do your part. You got to exercise. You could release all those all those interleukins, all those things that are good for your health just by exercising. But to augment that, with peptides and maybe fresh frozen plasma or FFP, PRP, it just makes sense. So, you got to exercise, you got to do your part, but all those other things are just additive. And if they help, why not use them?
Yeah, I have to ask you about, diet as well. Like as a physician, is that something that, when you were coming up and learning, was that something that was like pushed heavily, or is that something that is like learned later on?
It was learned because I wanted to do jiu-jitsu and I wanted to be as healthy as I could. Even before I started jiu-jitsu, I tried to be as healthy as I could. In doing jiu-jitsu, I think I've noticed a lot more food sensitivity, like, what helps me perform better, what hurts my performance.
Yeah, it's like you're not going to eat some extremely spicy food right before you go train. Right.
So, yeah, so you kind of realize, what maybe helps you perform better or what doesn't. You don't learn that in med school. Med school is, it's hard enough to learn physiology and all the medications that are out there. They don't really teach nutrition the way it probably needs to be taught for maximum performance. And so that's probably an area that I try to push with my residents a lot. I tell my residents and medical students there's two things that you could do as a physician. Antibiotics help people, but eating well and exercising are the two biggest things you could do, even in the hospital. It's imperative that you get up, walk around. You just change your physiology once you do that. And people that don't do that obviously take a lot longer to heal. So I'm a big believer in exercise and eating the right way. Not that it's not that my body fat's 10% or anything like that, but I think for 56, I'm in okay shape. And a lot of that's just because I exercise and try to eat right.
Yeah, I know that, I hear this really talked about a lot that, people now that are in their like 40s and 50s are, biologically younger than if you looked at our parents or grandparents at that age, right? Do you feel like that's the case of, 40, I should say 40, 50s and 60s guys are, able to work out longer, look healthier, live better lives?
I think that's true. I think part of that, is because we do have a lot of advancements. I mean, hormone replacement therapy has actually helped a lot with that. But again, you got to use it right. But yes, you have every opportunity to be, just being 56 and thinking about my dad at 56, I'm in a much, much better shape than he was. And it's not because of my genes or anything else. It's because I exercise. But yeah, I do take advantage of TRT. My testosterone is not super therapeutic, but it's right where it needs to be, and I feel better because of that.
Yeah, I have some older guys that train with me, and they'll go to like their general practitioner and have their TRT levels checked, and they'll tell them that they're within their normal range for somebody that's their age, and I'm assuming that is correct, right? But being in that normal range of somebody that's 50 years old is not optimal, right? I mean, I'm not saying like make my levels like an 18-year-old, but at the same time, I don't want to feel exhausted and tired and, unable to maintain muscle mass.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I mean, obviously anybody undergoing any kind of TRT therapy, obviously you have to do it under the guise of a physician to make sure that it's safe and all of that. So I'm not saying go out there and just take TRT, but I agree to some degree. A lot of a lot of physicians aren't trained in where probably your optimal testosterone should be. Actually, it's interesting. Testosterone is a U-shaped curve. So if you there is literally a certain amount that you should be at. Anything under that, you're underperforming. But anything over that, you're getting risks for increased hematocrit. Sleep apnea becomes worse. You get more apt to get blood clots. So there actually is a reasonable area to where to be in. Performance, albeit, is important, but numbers and making sure your blood pressure and your blood work is important also.
Yeah, I can understand that. You were telling me a little bit about, I didn't get to see it today, but you guys have some type of a pad that people will lay on when they get infusions, or you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So in talking about the young plasma, we tried to come up with a way that you can get maximum therapy, because it is expensive, I have to admit. It works, but it's time consuming, it's an expensive therapy. We thought, is there a way to make it so that your body can absorb more? And so I partnered with a cardiologist who has a lot of inventions, a lot of patents. He thought about it for months, and he came up with something that's actually an older device and is FDA approved. It's a mat that uses magnetic therapy, and what the magnetic therapy does is that it opens up your vasculature, and it allows more blood flow to areas that don't normally get optimal blood flow. And then theoretically, you put the IV in and you absorb more IV into the tissue based on using this mat. So you open up the theory is you open up the vasculature, you give an IV, whether it's vitamin C, magnesium, glutathione, just depends on what you're giving. Open up the vasculature, You give the IV and then you close the vasculature and let that kind of percolate. So based on the molecular weight, let's say glutathione is probably one of your biggest ones that people get. You could increase levels theoretically up to eight times the normal you would get in your blood level. So it actually gets to where it needs to be. Instead of just being in the blood and getting rid of it, your body gets more because it goes in the tissues where it's needed.
Is that something that you guys are going to offer for people to purchase?
Yeah, we're working on it's called quantum therapy, and the magic isn't in the magnetic part of it. The magic is opening up the vasculature, timing it right in conjunction with your BMI and what you're giving.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is you put in all your metrics in this app. You get then a coin or a token. You take that to anywhere that does quantum therapy, and then just program that into the machine, and then give the appropriate IV and whatever you're getting based on those calculations.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was something that would like eventually be for sale for the public. That way, because if you're taking supplements at home, like everybody knows, there's a certain percentage of that just passes right through your system. So I didn't know if that would be something that you guys considered.
Yeah, I really haven't thought of. I don't know, and we haven't done. The studies. Granted, we are doing studies on it's called homocysteine to look at homocysteine levels. It works IV, at least theoretically works IV. I don't know if it would work the same way if you take a pill. Would you get more absorption? I don't think that would be the same thing. This is more based on IV because you're going in the bloodstream, right?
Yeah.
If you take it by mouth, it's going to go in the stomach and that's going to dissolve. So I don't think it would work that way. But interestingly, this mat is used for physical therapy to actually, again, open up the vasculature, get more blood flow to the muscles and all that. So it's actually used. We're just using it in a different way.
Okay. Do you guys do the red light therapy? Have you guys?
We do all that. Yeah, we do the red light therapy. We even do, at least in the next month, we'll be doing hyperbaric oxygen. So with the real machines, the 2.5 to 3 Atmos type machines. So
yeah, I got a chance to take a look at those, and it's pretty impressive back there. That.
Yeah, we've got 8. We'll probably start out just with using 3 at first, but it's going to be exciting because of the wound care. It obviously makes sense to get hyperbaric oxygen. It's great for patients, but there's been some anecdotal evidence I've seen that actually helps recovery too. So let's say you're an athlete and you want to speed up your recovery time. Like I said, I've seen anecdotally where that actually will help speed up recovery time. I mean, it makes sense. You're getting high concentrations of oxygen under a medically supervised physician.
Right.
You would think that it does help. It makes sense anyway.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on NAD? I've personally had NAD injections myself. I do something called NMN as well, which is supposed to convert to
it's a precursor.
It's supposed to convert to NAD in the system, and that's something that I take every single day. It's just something I picked up a couple years ago, and since then I've taken it, and I've had the NAD infusions a couple of times, and the way they explained it to me is like, obviously you have NAD in every cell in your body, and then as you age, you have less of that. But every time that I've done it, I always feel, if I have some kind of injury in my body, I feel like a superheated area where that, NAD is, I guess, supposedly going. Is that more anecdotal, or is science behind that?
I know we do use NAD here. I don't have a whole lot of peer-reviewed studies that talk about NAD. My wife takes it. She swears by it. She said her energy levels are a lot higher. She feels much better with it. I've taken it once or twice. I did feel a little more energetic, but in terms of, like I said, peer-reviewed journals, I don't have a lot of evidence on that. I'm sure it's out there, but it is something that seems like a lot of people do take that now, and for the same reason, they just feel like they have more energy.
Yeah. I don't know if it's doing anything, but I definitely, it's something that I've adopted into my system, and I have a concoction that I put together every morning that's kind of like a hydration drink after sleeping, but also it has things like creatine in it, and some antioxidants and some other BCAAs and stuff that it's just like part of my regimen. Every morning I get up and I make this drink,
And again, you're an athlete, so you kind of know, like I had said, what your body kind of needs. And again, some people that maybe aren't athletes don't know that. And if they want to get some more information on that, we'd be glad to talk to them down here at ProMed. But like I said, it's just amazing how many new products there are out there, how many new ideas there are out there. The market is expanding. Just do it safe. But yeah, I'm a big believer in a lot of those supplements. I think they do help performance.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. We spent a good time talking here, and I just want to thank you for letting me do this.
All right,
it's
Tony.
been a lot of fun, and
Sure.
we'll come back and we'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.